Voting is one of the key pillars of a democratic society. In fact, the right to vote is one of the most powerful tools available to every eligible citizen. In each vote is the destiny of a whole nation. In recent years, we are seeing a very disturbing trend in the Gambia where the number of votes cast is usually less than half of the voters registered, which means people are actually surrendering their right to choose who their leaders are. I am Umi Bachili, the moderator of the show, and today we will talk about voter education and registration and many more issues pertaining to the upcoming electoral cycle. Here with me is Mr. Joseph Colley of the IEC. We also have Mr. Yusufa Bojang of NCCE and Mr. Yusufa Diba of Ceprass. I will let them introduce themselves briefly and then open the floor for discussion.
Thank you very much, Umi. I am Joseph Colley, Director of Training, Communications and Public Affairs of the Independent Electoral Commission, and I'm happy to be part of this program.
Thank you. I am Yusufa Bojang, Program Manager, National Council for Civic Education. We are very happy to be associated with this program, and we want to recognize the effort of Ceprass for this very good initiative, and also by extension thank their partners for supporting them to be able to come up with this, as the country is gearing up for another very busy electioneering cycle. It is important that we start engaging citizens and have a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Yusufa Diba, representing Ceprass, Center for Policy Research and Strategic Studies at the University of the Gambia. We are conducting this thing on behalf of IRI. Thank you.
In the 2016 presidential elections, there was about 59% voter turnout. And in the National Assembly elections the following year, only 42% of the registered voters went to the polls. In the most recent elections held in Nyamena West, we saw a voter turnout of 61%, which is still not good for a country like the Gambia that is on the path to democracy. Mr. Diba, what can we do to increase the knowledge of Gambians on the importance of elections and to generate confidence in the legitimacy of the elected government?
Yeah, there are several factors that we can use to motivate, people to go in for election. Leadership is one aspect, because most of the time people don't have confidence in the leaders that are being, representing us. Number two, the youths also have their own perception about, elections. Some feel that it is a waste of time, because most of them are having this syndrome of, going outside, their nerves. So, and then because they are not, getting what they want in their country, like unemployment, there's high unemployment rate in the country, and that is discouraging most of them to participate into this, electoral process. And thirdly, they also have, a low level of knowledge about their fundamental human rights and constitutional rights within the country, not knowing that without, participating in the electoral process, the leaders we are going to have are not going to give them what they really want. So these are the kind of issues that if we want to improve on the voter participation, we have to do a lot of sensitization to educate them in all these spheres.
Thank you very much. The right to vote is actually guaranteed under the political rights provided in Section 26 of the 1997 Constitution. Mr. Bojang, tell us who is eligible to vote.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you rightly said, participating in election is both a civic right and a duty. And as you rightly mentioned, Section 26 of the 1997 Constitution is not silent about it. It guarantees you as a citizen that anybody who is who has the minimum threshold of 18 years, that is why he said you have full age and capacity as a citizen of the Gambia. You have a right to participate in the conduct of public affairs, to take part in the election, periodic elections, including the referendum. So a citizen of the Gambia who is 18 years and above is the guy who is qualified to take part in the conduct of election in the Gambia. And this is very important. That's why we say it is a right. The Constitution recognizes your right and gives you your right. But again, for you to go out and vote is now going to be a duty on you. Like Mr. Diba said, several factors can be attributed to the high voter apathy. And we need to look at that very well, critical, and understand why the low voter turnout. And again, if we understand what are the underlying causes, what measures or remedies do we need to put in place to make sure that we encourage people to go out and vote. Because here, the only thing we can do is to encourage people. We have the assumption that maybe some don't know the value of their votes or don't know the importance of voting, and that is why they are not voting. So as actors, what we can do is to enlighten them, to remind them about their powers, to remind them about the importance of voting, and also the repercussion of failing to vote. These are the things we can do. But other countries, of course, we understand they have some measures to encourage people to vote. That is, registration may not be a force, but once you are registered, it becomes now a force on you to vote, because it is the state resources that is spent on preparing that voter's card that you acquire. Voter's card is not acquired for travel purpose or to use it for business transaction. It is solely prepared for election. But here sometimes we see a situation where people get a voter's card, but come election, they refuse to vote for whatever reason best known to them. So that is why although some of those countries, once you get the voter's card, it is now a must on you to go and vote. But here, it is not so. Only thing we can do is to encourage people, to enlighten them, to go out and vote and understand that their voter's card, as you rightly put in your preamble, is their voice. And it can determine whether the country will actually progress or will be otherwise.
Thank you very much.
So it is very important.
Thank you very much. And so at the level of civil society and at the level of Ceprass, what is being done to ensure that there's mass voter turnout in the next electoral cycle coming up in 2021?
Currently what we are doing, we are trying to do a mass sensitization to ensure that people are aware of their constitutional and democratic rights. And then without voting, you cannot get the type of leaders you want. And without getting the right leaders, you don't also get, the kind of programs that, will enable you to get your, your constitutional right. And not only that, but they also have to realize, that, they, especially the youth, form the majority. About 60% of the population.
Definitely.
All right. If they are not participating in the election, it leads to voter apathy. Then those who are engaging in the election process, the people they have voted in are the people who are going to rule them, and at the same time they are not going to get what they want from them. So their participation is very key to ensure that they engage the leaders, to what they want. Otherwise, they vote them out. And not only that, people are not aware of the fact that voting is very important, and the leaders should be answerable to the illegitimate voters, because in other countries you see that when when they vote you in and you didn't fulfill your promise, the next time they take you out.
Definitely.
If we started doing that now, the leaders will be aware that if we don't fulfill our promises, and then we didn't fulfill our requirements, next time we will not come in.
So Mr. Colley, why the low level of voters coming out? The IEC is planning registration in early 2021, April 2021, and no one can vote without a voter's card. What are the requirements? Are there challenges with getting voters cards? Are there fees involved that are expensive? We know that maybe most people might find it difficult to be able to afford a voter's card. What are the requirements to obtain a voter's card?
Thank you very much. First of all, the voters cards issued free of charge. Free of charge indirectly. Yeah, but directly, it's taxpayers' money, because it's the government that foots the bill, the entire bill. So, and sometimes, like, let me just go on to the low voter turnout. Like, for presidential election, the whole country is one constituency. So we don't normally have problems. And then because of sometimes it's the postings of the people. For instance, when it is time for registration, you may be in Basse on postings. And then for National Assembly, you're down. So sometimes, people, because, like, it's not my constituency, and they're like. So that's why this time around we're taking our time. You know, at the moment we are on a workshop, and what we are trying to do, we're trying to, in fact, we had an assessment, you know, wherein us, the principal registration officers and the regional electoral officers, who went around the whole country looking at the registration centers. You see, so we are trying to decongest some of the registration centers. We're trying to make sure that, like, because what we did was, when we went out in July, we asked the chiefs and the alcalos and some of the traditional rulers, we asked them to write to us, to tell us, you know, inform us and tell us, you know, like the centers they want us to decouple. I can give an example. Like, if people have to travel for 11 kilometers or 7 kilometers, sometimes it's difficult. Once they are done with the presidential, National Assembly, they think it's a waste of time. Coming to local council elections. Now, so what we've done now, what we want to do this time now is, we want to take the registration centers as close to the people as possible. So we don't want people to travel more than 5 kilometers to get registered. So that is what we're doing now. So, and then the other thing that we want to bring out is, like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Like, I have colleagues living in Latrikunda. I just give you this as an example. If you take the QCell here now, so everything, even QCell is under Jushan constituency. I'm just giving an example. So if you live around LK, or around LK, you come and register at the post office here, Serekunda post office. So you're leaving Serekunda West and then crossing over to Joshua. So that's one of the reasons. So people don't know. So that's why this time around we're going to involve everybody. So that after this we're going to do the team movement. So all these things will be published, not only published. This time we will go down even to the alcalos and then to the villages. We'll give them some of these copies so that at least stay where you are. The teams will come, because we're going to have about 220 teams, so around the country. So they'll be moving. So don't get caught up. Because, like, for instance, you go to Serekunda Market and then you see a team around Dipakuna Mosque or Aisha Mari, you're not from there. Because you are what? You are either to, you are requested either to register where you are born or where you live. So these are the two conditions, where you live or where you are born. So you decide. For instance, I'm here, I'm from maybe Kiang or Badibu or from Basse. So if definitely I want to vote in Basse, so let me just be prepared. For every election, I have to travel to Basse. Thank God this time around, if you look at 4th of December, presidential election is on a Saturday. So we have what? We have also, because we've been having challenges. Thursdays.
Wouldn't there be a risk though if you vote where you are? For example, wouldn't there be a risk of double registration?
No. Because it's biometric, we will flag it. So you register where you are born or where you live. Okay. When it comes to what we're going to do, we did assessment, so we want to make the registration centers accessible to the people. I just want to give you an example. You go to Iwo Town, there are only 2 centers, Iwo Town Mosque and Pagejola, Sanchaba. So what we've done, what we are planning is to decongest the whole area, so that, like, maybe you can take one to Badala. It's populated. So these are some of the things that and then our people went throughout, and we're working on that. Pretty soon we will release the team movement so that people know. Now the requirements, they're easy. Yusufa said citizenship. You have to be a citizen. And then, of course, the law is such that it's sort of a bit relaxed. Okay, you may be 18, you may be 17. Because what we do is, like, 4th of December, 2021, we will be presidential election. So when we are registering, we will register all those who will be 18 on 4th December.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
Not necessarily you have to be 18. That's what the law says.
Okay.
But you have to, because by the time the election comes, you have to take into consideration all those who will be eligible, who will be 18. So you have to register. Like, for instance, if the registration...
All the way to 4th of December.
Yes.
What about for those that are not in the country?
Yes, we're working on that, and then it's been budgeted. That's diaspora. But like those people...
No, I mean those that during the registration process, they're actually not present. Maybe they travel for about 2 or 3 months and come back.
No, because the thing is, that's why we have the window. Our system is such that we have what? We have a general, and then we have supplementary. So if you miss that window, it means you have to wait for the next.
This
You
is
have
the
to-
this is
so
the
that
reason,
is why,
and this
yeah.
is this is a problem for me, because this is the reason why I don't have a voter's
That's
card.
the thing. So it
Because
is,
every elections,
it is the way the law is.
yes,
You know, I don't
because
want
every elections, I'm
Mm.
either not here during the registration process, or the last registration, mass registration, I actually traveled and came back the day that it was closing. So it was too late for me
Too
to.
late,
Yeah, so there has to be some kind
Yeah,
of.
we were working on that, and then hopefully, because like we were trying to get that continuous registration.
Yes.
But
What
we will come to that. But let
Okay.
me just come to the requirements.
requirements?
Now.
Yes.
Now, of course, you have to be a citizen. We don't determine who a citizen is. That is why it is important. IEC's problem is, like NCC can talk about who a citizen is. For us, you have to prove that you are a citizen.
Okay.
For us, that's our problem.
Okay.
We don't want to tell we don't want you to tell us.
And
you're a
what are these
citizen.
proofs
The proof
that you
is
need to
just
provide?
bring us the documents, because if you say you are a citizen, there are documents that you are to show. First is a birth certificate, identity card, passport, and then there is this fourth document, attestation. We call it attestation. So this attestation, can be issued by two authorities, the alcalo or the chief.
Okay.
Okay, and then the law is specific. In 2001, we had powers to interview. Even if you bring this, we interview. That's why I said now we don't have that powers now.
Okay.
Because we don't. Once you bring this, the law says once you bring these documents to us, we register you.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collier. I think that's very clear. You need a birth certificate.
Yes.
And you need attestation.
ID card.
ID card.
No, because you have to present one of these.
Yes.
Either a birth certificate, ID card, passport. So if you don't have any of these three, that's the time you go to the alcalo.
And get an attestation.
Attestation.
Okay.
Then he will write that you are, born in that village also, or you go to your chief.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I think that's clear, and I think we can conclude that there is really a need for people to go out and register during the next voter registration cycle.
If you don't register,
you won't be. You're actually letting other people make decisions on your behalf.
Vote, yes,
really, it's important. Let's talk about peaceful elections. Experts have identified some challenges faced by voters in the Gambia, which has impacted their ability to show up at the polls on election day. And these are, they include intimidation and fear, threats of violence, tribalism, religious sentiments, and so forth. When we talk about peaceful elections, Mr. Diba, how do we define peaceful elections? Very shortly, because we have very limited time.
Well, peaceful election, as you have talked about the parameters. In the absence of all that, then there will be peaceful election. And then also there has to be a non-provocation. You see, and then this, all the more reason, I think that's why people are not allowed to put on their party identity during the election. Because all these things can bring provocation.
On election day. Yes.
And what is the role of civil society, Mr. Bojang, in sort of mitigating some of these issues during elections?
The role of civil society is basically enlightening people, because elections is governed by rules. First is the Constitution, followed by the Electoral Act. And in that you have the election code that specify how people should behave during the election, both voters and also parties. Individual parties during their campaigning, canvassing for votes, how they should be comporting themselves, all are specified in the Act. So if we follow that, there will be no problem during the elections.
So there's actually laws and policies in place?
Exactly,
okay.
exactly.
Okay.
The IEC electoral code is there, is very clear, and our role, maybe as civil society actors, is to make sure that we familiarize ourselves with those laws and try to enlighten citizens on those laws, to understand that it is a crime, it is against our laws, it is also undemocratic to be intimidating people, to be using abusive language during your political platform, during your rallies and whatever. Democracy is about diversity, is about multipartism. You have a choice to follow whoever you want, the other one also have that. And the underlying key word there will be what? Tolerance. Tolerance become very paramount if we want to have a peaceful electoral process in the country.
Okay, Mr. Kweli, how does the IEC ensure, like Mr. Bojan has just said, there are policies and laws in place by IEC. How do you mitigate some of these risks? How do you ensure that these tribalism, political sentiments, intimidation and fear does not happen on elections day?
Yes, well, what happens is, like, you see, from the beginning up in issue, you know, when you look at Section 60 of the Constitution, which talks of formation of political parties, and then Section 105 of the Elections Act, you know, like, they know exactly, you know, like, political parties should not be formed on the basis of religion or tribe, or, you see, from the beginning, you know, everybody knows that. And then when you come to, in fact, when you forming a political party, the ethics, campaign ethics that he's talking of, the code of conduct, they sign, like the political party leaders, they sign that, you know, it's part of the package for formation of political parties. And then when it comes to elections, each of the candidates, you know, each of the candidates signs that. So, and it's there. We've been given, once we've given yellow card during the 2017, because we wrote to all candidates. This time we will not, because we have the powers.
What happens when they're given the yellow card?
Yeah, the yellow card is warning.
Is there a fine?
It's warning.
Okay.
It's warning. But now we will start giving red card to candidates. When you give you red card, it means that you will cancel your candidature.
Wow.
Yes, because because the thing is, you can see we have 16 political parties. And as I am talking to you, we have one that are just waiting for payment, pay the 1 million. We have 2 that we are looking into. You know, two submitted. You see what I'm trying to say? So you see the players. And then, you know, I will not finish by not mentioning IPC, Inter-Party Committee. You know, they've been doing wonders. You know, they've been having workshops. I know through IRI, I mean, OneUp, you know, they have one. They have their own workshop, and then they have regional chapters. So they also playing a pivotal role, because they know that without peace, we know we cannot do anything. So they're doing very well. And I wish to commend them, and I encourage them that they do that. Because, like, if political parties can sit down together and discuss the issues and talk about what of the supporters? So we have to be what? We have to try and look up to the way they behave. Because when they meet, you know, they discuss.
Definitely.
In peace.
So we need to, as a society, we need to now...
the supporters. Why not the supporters?
That's very important. Now, we've spoken about voter education. We've spoken about peaceful elections. Now, how do we make the process inclusive for all? When we talk about marginalized groups, we talk about women, we talk about people with disabilities, we talk about youths. Youths making up over 60% of the population, but they're still not seen in leadership or decision-making. You know, positions in political parties and also in our institutions as well. So how do we make sure that this is different in the upcoming electoral cycle? We include women, we include people with disabilities. I know the draft constitution had the 2020 draft constitution had some very progressive clauses to include at least 2 women in each administrative area, to also include youth, 10% of youths in political parties, and also people with disabilities to be selected within the federation. So very briefly, let's close with that. How do we make the process more inclusive? Mr. Diba.
Yeah, the process is very simple, but based on your knowledge, because we have to accept diversity. And this is part of diversity, because we all have a role to play in the process. And then if we come together, definitely we can make a better decision than individuals. But, you know, at the same time, the level of knowledge is what is lacking. And then because, you know, if we talk about gender mainstreaming, it is very important in development process. And then youth participation also is very important in the development process, because there are 7 scenes of, you know, development, and one of which is development without youth is not development. Without, you know, without gender is not development, because we all have a responsibility.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Bojang, very briefly.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the party internal democracy. First, the parties, their legal frameworks, that is their constitutions. And then second, there are selection committees, because at the end of the day, these are the critical decision makers in the political parties.
So at the level of political parties, they need to be more inclusive at that level.
Well, like as you are rightly put it, the draft constitution actually have progressive provisions in trying to bridge that gap. But if you look at the current constitution, those things are actually limited, or they are not much available in the current constitution.
Okay.
So it is left to the political parties to make sure that they try to cater for this, not only to have it verbally saying we are encouraging women, we are encouraging
not
youth.
lip service only, but to make sure it's the policy within the party.
At the end of the day, you
Okay.
relegate them to clappers and then mobilizing force, but you don't give them meaningful leadership position.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bojang. Mr. Colley, at the level of the political parties, is IEC requiring political parties to sort of have executives, marginalized groups in their executives at that level?
Yeah, as he said, I mean, like, those are not, they are not within the laws. You know, they're supposed to be part of their own constitution. But, you know, at our own level, what we're doing, like, we make sure that, I mean, there is inclusiveness, you know, in all that we do.
Thank
all
you
our
very
operations, whether it's election, even our recruitment, you know, like, we make sure that at least we have at least 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah, for women, you know, and men, and then, of course, youth.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We have to wrap up now. Thank you very much for participating, and thank you to Ceprass and the International Republican Institute for funding this session. Thank you very much.